All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the As You Are Community Guided Meditation. I'm your host, Michael Sinclair. And As You Are is a community that I founded a few years ago, a community that I'm hoping will be a group of people who are all interested in healing and growing together and discovering our true selves and learning to love and accept that true self. And one of the most critical ways that I've found to discovering your true self is to meditate regularly, which is why I thought it was a good idea to offer guided meditations, twice a week, so that whoever wanted to join, perhaps you can develop a meditation practice if you don't have one, or perhaps you can reinforce your meditation practice if you already have one, or it could just be nice to meditate with other people, other like-minded, like-hearted people, right? For today's meditation, what's been sitting on my heart personally is fear. Like a lot of fear in the world, with all the current events and all the shootings happening, especially, right? It can be hard to not feel afraid and not even looking at the world, even in our personal lives, in our relationships, in our careers, and in our social dynamics, there's a lot of fear. And for me, I've recently made a decision that brought up a lot of fear within myself. I get into these spaces where it sometimes feels like I'm fearless. And, perhaps that does come in waves for all of us. But I think if the right trigger is pulled, that a lot of fear can resurface for us all. And lately, a lot of fear has been resurfacing for me. I think what's really important when it comes to fear is to not claim it as ourselves. Like, oftentimes we'll say, I am afraid, but in actuality, you aren't afraid. You're experiencing fear. I'm experiencing fear. Fear is something that comes and passes. It's not something that is who we are. It's not what our identity is. And I feel like if we can create that separation between ourselves and fear, if we can create that space between ourselves and fear, then we leave a lot of room for that fear to unravel and not to have such a tight grip on our lives. The thing about fear is that it makes you think that it keeps you safe, but it really doesn't. Like, fear never makes you any safer. All it does is delay action. And that's what it did for me for a long time. Like, believe it or not, doing these meditations, there was a lot of fear that came up in me about doing it for a lot of reasons. And because of that fear, I never took action on it. And it just continued to haunt me because it felt like something that I really needed to do. It was something that was close to my heart. And fear told me that, if I didn't do it, then I didn't have to risk, failing or being rejected or it not turning out or becoming what I wanted it to be. So I'm glad that I eventually overlooked that fear, but I'd be lying if I said that fear wasn't there to begin with. And I guess that's the point of this entire meditation is sitting with fear, just to sit with it, just to face it. Like, we're not going to do anything special. I don't want you to try to understand your fear or unravel your fear. We're going to do what we always do. We're going to sit, we're going to breathe. And the only exception is we're going to allow a space we're going to allow a space for fear to sit with us if that's what it wants to do. We're not going to condemn the fear. We're not going to push the fear away. We're just going to look at it in its eyes and see it for what it really is. So, as we begin this meditation, I first want you to find a comfortable position, whatever that means for you. You don't have to be sitting up. You can lay down if you would rather lay down. We do want to make sure our spine is as straight as possible. So if you are sitting up and you find that difficult to do on your own, use a chair and allow the back to support you. And just take a moment to feel grounded wherever you are. What does that mean? That means feel the weight of yourself in the chair, in the ground, on the bed, wherever you are. Totally feel what it feels like to be in your body right now. The weight of gravity. If you're outside, perhaps the breeze in the room. And if you feel safe enough to do so, close your eyes and I'll do my best to guide you with my voice for the rest of this meditation. And we're going to enter this space with a question. One question, a question that we're not necessarily going to try to answer. I don't want your ego to take off with this question and go down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out the answer to it. I just want to ask a question and to leave a space open for whatever comes up. And we're just going to watch whatever comes up. We're not going to try to change it. We're just going to watch it. And the question that I would like for us to watch together is, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? If you're just joining, we're about to meditate. So find a comfortable seat. Sit up as straight as you possibly can. Feel free to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And what we're going to do is allow a space for fear to present itself if it wants to. And we're going to do that by asking ourselves this question: what am I afraid of? And again, don't force your ego to answer this question. We're just going to sit here and watch our breath for the next 15 minutes. And if anything comes up, great. If nothing comes up, that's also great. So I want you to bring your awareness to your belly as you breathe deeply. Take an inhale into your belly. Exhale, release. Feel the belly collapse. Inhale through your nose. Feel your belly rise. Exhale through your mouth. Feel the belly fall. Beautiful. One more. Inhale through your nose. Feel the belly rise. Exhale through your mouth and feel the belly fall. Continue to take these deep, meaningful breaths on your own at whatever pace feels comfortable to you. I want you to put your focus on, keep your focus on the rising and the falling of your belly. And again, we're not chasing thoughts. We're not chasing afterthoughts. We're not trying to figure out what we're afraid of. We're just putting that question in the space, and if anything arises, great. But where we're going to put our attention to is our breath. We're not trying to exert a lot of effort to keep thoughts out. The only effort we're using is keeping our awareness open, keeping the space open, watching and witnessing whatever passes through. And if something interesting or something painful does come up, we're not going to try to fight it. We're not going to try to confront it. We're just going to continue to breathe through it and create a space for it to exist. See if you can allow your breath to lengthen just a bit more. And as you allow your breath to lengthen, see if you can allow your body to relax a bit more. Use that breath to release any tension that you may be holding, perhaps in your ankles or your wrist or your shoulders or your jaw. Use the breath to release any tension that you may be holding and allow the space to open even more. I think for most of us, fear is something that we try to get rid of as soon as possible. But what if instead fear was something that we could let be? What if instead of needing to get rid of fear as quickly as we can, what if we just sat with it? What if we just sat with ourselves? What if we just allowed ourselves to be with whatever we're feeling? We're about halfway through our meditation, and for the remaining half, I want you to try to just be with whatever it is that you're feeling. For many of us, for men especially, I think the feeling of fear often comes with a feeling of shame, feeling ashamed to feel afraid. But you don't have to be ashamed of being afraid. Everyone gets afraid. And in fact, the only reason we get afraid is because we love ourselves and because we don't want harm to come to ourselves. So fear is not something that you should be ashamed of. Fear is something that actually speaks to our own love for ourselves, our own love for our own well being. The issue is sometimes fear lies to us. Sometimes fear makes things seem worse than they actually are. This is especially true if instead of facing fear, we run from it. Because we use so much of our time and energy, occupy so much of our time and energy trying to escape, that we miss out on a lot of life. So my intention for this meditation, what I would hope that you would gain, is the ability to allow fear to exist, to not be shamed by fear, but to allow it and to watch it with loving compassion. Whatever it is that's filling your space right now, I want you to see if you can bring your awareness back to the breath. If there are some difficult feelings that have come up, let's see if we can breathe into those feelings. If you feel any tension in your heart, try to breathe into that tension into your heart space. See if you can release that tension with every exhale that you take. Scientists say that infants are only born with two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. What that tells me is that every other fear that we have are fears not that we were born with, not that we can't live without, but actually they're fears that we learned. An infant can be startled, but I'd argue that an infant can't feel fear at all because, in my experience, fear is something that always takes place in the past or in the future. Fear always comes from concepts and conceptualizing, and that's not something that an infant is able to do. An infant can be startled because startling happens in the present. But an infant can't be afraid because fear is always tied to the past or to the future. What I'm telling myself, and the message I would like to share with you is, perhaps if we can be more present, Perhaps if we can be more focused on the here and now, then maybe we'll have a lot less fear inside of us. And perhaps without that fear always taking our attention away, we can do a better job of creating the lives that we want to live. So feel free to wiggle your toes and your fingers a little bit. And slowly open your eyes if you had them closed. I'd like to thank you for taking this time and sharing your practice with me, taking this time out for yourself and sharing this time with me. I hope that this meditation served you in some way. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send me a message or get in contact with me some other way. Again, this is the As You Are Community Guided Meditation. It happens every Wednesday and Sunday unless, some unforeseen circumstances come up. But hopefully we'll see you again on Sunday. And thanks again for joining. Peace.